Speaker, I now yield 3 minutes to the distinguished gentlelady from Washington, a member of the Judiciary Committee, Ms. Jayapal.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in strong support of the Forced Arbitration and Justice Repeal Act. Forced arbitration deprives workers of the choice to have their day in court. When companies impose forced arbitration clauses, they choose every aspect of the process. They choose the mediator, they choose the location, and they choose the terms of the relief. This is a lose-lose scenario, and it disproportionately harms workers, particularly women and communities of color, but it imposes enormous consequences for everyone. You sign a contract for car repair, for car rental, for any consumer transaction, and hidden in those contracts, when you need that car rental, and hidden in those contracts is a prohibition from you taking any claim to court. No choice, no notion even for the majority of people that this fundamental right to that choice to sue an unscrupulous corporation is being taken away from you when you sign that contract. So I think of this bill, Madam Speaker, as a bill for the little guy or little woman. Women and people of color forced into arbitration face mostly white male arbitrators in environments that heavily favor corporate interests. When musician Jay-Z entered arbitration without a single black arbitrator in the room, he asked for, quote, neutrals of color, but only 3 suggested alternatives were black, one of whom was a partner at the law firm representing the opposing party. Eliminating forced arbitration would open the courthouse doors for women, for workers of color, for poor folks across this country, advancing social equity and aiding the fight against discrimination. But it's also the right thing for every single consumer to be able to pursue this right to a day in court. Just last week, President Biden signed into law my bill with Representative Sherry Bustos to ban forced arbitration in cases of sexual harassment and sexual assault. That will protect the right of 60 million workers to a fair day in court. And that's just the people that are subject to employment contracts. On top of that, it will apply, and it will apply retroactively, to all of the contracts around sexual assault and sexual harassment. That is huge progress. And what's good enough in cases of sexual assault and sexual harassment, and that bill passed in a bipartisan way, bicamerally, is good enough for all workers. So it's time to take the next step by passing this bill to extend these protections across the board to a fair day in court. And again, we emphasize that if somebody wants arbitration, it doesn't stop that route, but it does say you can't be forced only into this and into denying your day in court. Now, let's also be clear that the FAIR Act is carefully crafted to protect unions. It preserves essential union bargaining power while creating freedoms for non-unionized workers. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle have introduced an amendment that would undermine that power. This cannot happen. We cannot allow our Republican colleagues to undermine unions and the foundation of our middle class. I urge my colleagues to pass the FAIR Act, and I thank Congressman Hank Johnson for his leadership. I yield back.